Thank you, Minister, and I'd like an update on the work underway by the National Disability Service and HSE procurement to develop a tender process and service specifications for delivery of assessment of needs from private providers to deal with the long assessment of needs. If you would give me information. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Deputy. So the Government is fully aware of the importance of providing assessments under the Assessment of Need process as set out in the Disability Act 2005. And I wish to affirm my commitment in working to address these waiting lists, and I wish to acknowledge that there are significant challenges that families are experiencing as a result of current backlog, not just in Deputy Smith's area, but right across the country. So the High Court judgment delivered in March 2022 directed the PTA approach did not fulfil the requirements of the assessment of need and has further compounded the situation families awaiting AON are facing. So to address these issues, an allocation of funding in both Budget 2023 and Budget 2024 was provided to facilitate CHOs to procure diagnostic ASD assessments through the private sector, and the total amount involved in that was approximately 16 million. So the private providers are currently contracted by the HSE and lead agencies to provide assessments, ensuring that contracted providers are appropriately qualified and that any assessment or interventions are provided in line with the appropriate standard. And at present, the HSE is working to finalise a procurement process for additional assessments, and its evaluation stage at this moment. So the Deputy will appreciate I won't be able to speak about anything to do about that process due to commercial sensitivities, but both my department and the HSE acknowledge that more work to be done to address the challenges facing the OAN waiting list, and I am totally committed to resolving it. And the roadmap for service improvement launched last October will be examining the matter of the AON from a broader perspective with further development and solution challenges on the AON account and stakeholders. Is that okay, Deputy?
Yeah. Thank you, Minister. And like what you've said, we need to see this tender process. I believe we need to see the service specification for the delivery of assessments of needs. I think it needs to be rushed, Minister. I think the long waiting lists for assessment of needs, which is not a new phenomenon, should be the reason enough for the National Disability Service and the HSE procurement team to speed up the delivery of this, to ensure that the long waiting list can be tackled. And I can tell you I have huge issues with Carlow CDNT, the staffing and so on, which I have raised with the HSE and with you, Minister, and I want to thank you. I note at the moment there's about 50 children or maybe more in Carlow alone waiting for their assessment, and children about to go to school without having seen a therapist. And that is unacceptable. So, Minister, I really would ask that we need to rush on this. I'm really concerned. I've families coming into my clinic every day and they're tormented. So while I know you are fully committed, as is the other ministers, there really needs to be something done urgently on this.
Funding has been secured in budget after budget to ensure that we can address it. And only yesterday, myself and Minister O'Gorman and the department had a meeting around AONs to ensure that it is a priority, it is a focus, and it is actually getting the attention that it requires. But at the back of all of this, Deputy, it's important to understand that there's only so many therapists in the country. That is our problem. We're trying to fill our CDNT teams. We are trying to ensure that we're having assessments, and we're also delivering on interventions. And it is that balance that we're trying to create. The private market, from what I've seen from the procurements that has come back, there is actually a capacity issue there as well. And we don't have the desired capacity that's after coming back in. So it is all about people. It is all about ensuring how we use the resources we have best to ensure that we can actually, and that's the operational piece that myself and Minister O'Gorman have tasked the HSE with, is addressing how they can meet the balancing needs of intervention and assessment.
Thank you. Minister, can I ask you, have you also expanded on looking at any plans underway to explore an international procurement process in parallel with the one being developed nationally? I think this should not be overlooked in a way to help tackle the long waiting lists. And just going back to the CDNT in Carlow, we have a facility in Carlow and it's on Barrack Street. And there's one room being used in at the moment. Now, look, I know the staff there are doing their best. I know they're understaffed. But we have a beautiful facility and there's one room being used because there's not anyone else to fill the rest of it. There's no staff. These are huge issues, Minister, across the country, and I see it daily. So all I can just ask is the urgency of this really needs to be looked at, and I know you're aware of it. Thank you.
I certainly will look at that CDNT in Carlow that you have identified with one room, and I have to question how many staff are on the team and how it's been operationalised. But I go back again to what we had set up within the department since I've transferred over. We have put a specific workforce planning group in place in the department, and where we are looking at all options that are available and actually not reinventing too many of the wheels, but taking the approach of how can we actually, I see Dale Quinn in CHO1, she has a complete campaign around coming home for Christmas, and that is a really positive campaign that Edel is running in Donegal. And we also are looking at how we can entice and attract people coming home for Christmas nationally, and actually how the HSE are advertising. We don't have an embargo, and that was one thing that myself and Minister O'Gorman ensured that we would have. We don't have an embargo on recruitment. There is a risk assessment for management and AM admin, but there is no recruitment embargo on any of the clinical posts that we will be recruiting.
Yeah, take the next one. And Minister, again on the same topic, can I ask you, when do you expect to see the 6 new assessment hubs to streamline the assessment of needs process? When will it be established to relieve the pressure on the service delivery as set out in your roadmap to improve children's disability services? And again, if you will make a statement on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy. And I think it was one of the items that the HSE have delivered on time for me, was the assessment hubs, and I want to compliment them and thank them for actually addressing it. So it's important to say that that is a big part of our PDS roadmap. It is not the silver bullet, it won't solve it, but it is putting a structure and a shape to it. So at present, a combination of AON administrative and assessment hubs have been established in each CHO, with each CHO developing an approach to the establishment of a hub based on the unique circumstances that apply to the CHOs, as well as the capacity that they have within their existing resources. So the hub assessments will play a significant part in addressing the AON challenge. However, they will not in isolation solve the matter. Additional capacity in the system by way of successful recruitment and retention is the key to ensuring that our CDNTs have sufficient capacity for AONs and therapy interventions. This will allow families access to both, and it is an issue placed extremely high on the HSE's agenda. And in this regard, disability services have recently been exempted, as I said, from the recruitment embargo. In addition, private providers are also currently being contracted by the HSE and the lead agency in order to increase capacity for the assessments. And the Department and the HSE both acknowledge that the provision of assessments is a particular challenge due to their complexity and the length, but I wish to state that significant work is ongoing. So currently we have the hubs are in place, as I said to you, in all of the CHOs. Some have actually co-located on one particular site, some do it online, but at the end of the day, they are all working and they're all recruiting in the skill set that's required to actually have a proper pathway for the children.
Thank you, Minister, and I was glad to see you launched the roadmap to improve the children's disability services for 23-26 in October. I believe that these 6 assessment hubs to streamline the assessment of needs is urgent. Can I just ask you, have you are you going to expand on these hubs, and where do you intend maybe to do more hubs? I think it's important. Like if you look at Carlow, Kilkenny, for example now, so we have the 6 new assessment hubs. So if I was going to a parent today, Minister, tell me exactly what this hub will mean for them, because that is so important. As I said, I understand your commitment here, but when you're a parent waiting for an assessment, you know yourself, Minister, timing is the essence, and it's absolutely crucial that we get this right. Thank you so much.
You have asked specifically for Carlow, and hence I brought in the answer. So the hub itself, an AON administrative hub, providing centralised location, application, email database, whilst spreading AONs across AOs and the lead operations. So that is in place in Larkin House, Larkin Cross, Barnestown, Wexford. And there is 4 AOs, which are assistant officers. 3 of them are filled. 4 of the LOs, of which 2 temporarily assigned to AO role to address Waterford, New Ross, Wexford, and there's a backlog in filling the grade 3, grade 2s. And health and wellbeing staff temporarily assigned to support the processing of the PTAs and the outsourcing of the PPs, and 1.1 admin to be recruited. So the current focus on prioritising and outsourcing of the PTAs and the backlog due to the High Court judgment. So it's very clear there that the assessment hubs are up and running, and that's an example of your CHO.
I want to welcome that, Minister, and I just believe maybe if you would look at more maybe expansion on this, and I know again how committed you are, because Minister, is just from working with parents and seeing the concerns that they have, and if you look at the numbers of applications for assessment of needs under the Disability Act 2005, they have risen steadily since the implementation in June 27. So if you look at 7,612 applications for assessment of needs received in the most recent 4 quarters. So if you look at quarter 3 2022 and quarter 2 2023, that was the highest number of applications received in any 12-month period since part of the 2 of the Act was commenced in June 2007. So while I know that you are working on this and you're committed to this, Minister, I just know that it's important now that we recruit, we get as much staff as we can, and working with the families and the children, that we get them assessed as soon as possible. And thank you for all your help and support over the year on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. So, the responsibility just doesn't all lie with the Department of DCD or with the HSE. There is responsibility here as well within the Department of Education. To be quite honest with you, when you look at the increase, and the increase since the Act was incepted in its entirety, maybe some parts of that is because the EPSA Act hasn't been fully enacted itself. Maybe it's the fact that maybe we don't have enough NEP psychologists. Maybe it's the fact that and I have to acknowledge, education have removed the barrier for needing assessment to access education, but it doesn't mean it removes the barrier to accessing a special class. It also means that actually, without having an assessment, you can't access your social protection rights. Health, at all times, an assessment, we're needs-based, so we respond to the needs. So the next phase of the assessment hubs is actually ensuring that we have education, we have CAMS, and we have disability around the table, so that children are actually given a proper, clear pathway as to where has the right team for their interventions.